welcome back to Just Ask Mrs. Hurlbut. This is episode 37, and our topic today is cohabitation. Now, you might be wondering, why I would even be bringing that up? Well, let's just first put it in perspective. I'm talking about unmarried couples who are living together in a romantic relationship, okay? Just so we're clear. I'm alone again. I'm all by myself in the dark. So I'm getting a little more comfortable with this. I'm sure Lucy will be very happy to hear that I'm surviving without her. So here we go. Once again, I don't even have a list of questions this time, but I just got through having a great discussion with my students about this. So my hope is that I can share some thoughts that we shared together in class. And I am actually referencing The Defining Decade, Meg Jay's book. I highly recommend it for all of you high school and college students or even beyond. Phenomenal book for the single life, for building both relationships and careers. So there is a chapter in here called The Cohabitation Effect, and it's pretty brilliant what studies have shown. If you were my students right now, I would ask you, what are the reasons that people live together? Okay? Most people will answer, you're probably saying it right now. It's good to try out the scenario first. How will you get along? How will you blend with each other's lifestyles? Okay, that's one. Two is it might just be cheaper. Well, it is cheaper to share rent. Third, easier access to each other. Oftentimes for girls, it's the company, and with guys, it's easier access to sex. That's just what the studies share. So yes, those are all the reasons that people live together. And here's the crazy part. When I started teaching this course, I don't know, 13 years ago, and I talked to students about cohabitation, the general consensus for my students was, seems like it's a good idea. A couple years later, the general consensus was, yes, you should definitely live with somebody before you marry them. And then now I'm blown away by the general consensus, which is, oh, isn't that what you're supposed to do? So I'm here to kind of counter that, if you will allow me. And with the help of this book, the reality is that the living together before marriage and the success that equates is really a misconception. Because so many people slide into living together, it just seems to be the next logical step in the relationship. That sets you up for oftentimes failure. Why? Because you're making all these investments into the relationship that you haven't established yet. You haven't set forth goals yet. So if you're just moving in out of convenience, then you're not thinking 30, 40, 50, 60 years down the road. You're thinking 30, 60, 90 days down the road. Now, let me also say that this oftentimes, for those of you who might be saying, no, that's wrong, I'm living with my person and here's why. This doesn't really apply to people who are engaged. Oftentimes, people who are engaged have made a public commitment and they are planning a future together. Is that what we teach in my course? No, but that is the proof in this book, in the studies from this book. So when you move in together out of a reaction or a knee-jerk response or instant gratification, you're not looking at the big picture. And sometimes you might be a year into this relationship and now you've invested in what? Furniture, friends, maybe you got a dog, maybe you've fallen in love with each other's families. And then what happens when you want out? That's when the problems come in. So often people choose not to get out because they're locked into all these components that they didn't even realize they'd locked themselves into. When you move in together for the purpose of marriage, or if you are married, you know you're in it for the long haul. And so every step you take, every decision you make is intentional. It's looking at the bigger picture. There are many people who move in out of convenience, and in doing so, don't think of those things and therefore run into a huge roadblock when they decide this isn't for them. And what do they say? They say it's easier for me to just move forward. Kick the can down the road, I think she says. And if somebody proposes, oftentimes the other person says yes simply because they don't see any other out. In fact, they believe that maybe marriage or the possibility of children might save the relationship. But there's never been a foundation set for that relationship. And in so doing, it's getting a rocky start. So I want you to think about living together and really re-examine it before you jump in. Because we know that in today's world, that is the norm, at least where I live. And it's not just acceptable, it's presumed, it's expected. So I'm challenging you to consider that studies have shown that couples who live together before they're married have not proven anything about whether or not that marriage is going to be more successful than a couple who didn't live together. Let's hear what Meg J has to say in this chapter, The Cohabitation Effect. I'm just going to read just a page of it. If living together before marriage were indeed associated with better unions or lower divorce rates, this would be an extremely easy thing for researchers to show. A simple correlation study, many of them in fact, should be able to demonstrate that couples who live together before marriage are more likely to enjoy happier marriages and are less likely to seek divorce. Studies, however, have not shown this. To the contrary, some, but not all studies, have found that couples who live together first are actually less satisfied with their marriages and more likely to divorce than couples who do not. This is what some researchers call the cohabitation effect. The cohabitation effect has baffled many marital researchers. How could it be possible that couples who get to try living together first go on to have less successful marriages? Some researchers have fallen back on the explanation that shows who cohabitate may be less conventional and more open to divorce in the first place. But studies show that the cohabitation effect is not fully explained by individual characteristics such as religion, education, or politics. Similarly, in her private practice, and she's saying in my private practice, it is not the case that liberals live together or conservatives do not. In fact, the trend towards cohabitation is continuing in both red and blue states, just as it is in every other Western nation. So, what accounts for the cohabitation effect? Why doesn't the try before you buy approach guarantee a happy ending? Because in all likelihood, there is no one cohabitation effect. Of course, it is not true that all couples who live together before marriage are destined for unhappiness or divorce, nor is it true that all those who cohabitate first will live happily ever after. While I tell my clients about the cohabitation effect, what I tell them is this: the effect that living together has on your partnership will likely depend not on whether you live together, but how. So what are the decisions that you're making that lead to cohabitation? Are you looking at the big picture? Are you planning for your future? Or is this an immediate need, an immediate concern that needs to be dealt with, and we'll figure out everything else later? If that's the way you're going to enter into cohabitation, you're going to run into a lot of issues. If you're waiting till marriage, you've got it all dialed in. And by the way, if you wait till marriage, you're not going to be surprised by the way that person lives their life. You're not going to be shocked if they're a slob. You're not going to be concerned if they snore. These are the things that you learn during the discernment process of that engagement. And by the way, what I hear from students a lot is, well, what about sex? If I wait till I get married to move in with somebody and to have sex, what if the sex isn't good? Holy moly, I say to them, if your attraction is there and you've been building a relationship, the sex is the easiest part of the relationship. It's the finish line. It's the icing on the cake. It's the dessert. It's the best part. I don't know anybody who went into a marriage the way where they came prepared, who said, oh, wow, well, that was a disappointment. If you're going in together in love and with intention in your wedding planning, and you're looking at the greater picture, the greater good for both of you, and you're treating it as a vocation of service to one another, all that's going to be easy. The living together is going to be the magic because you waited, you valued it. So cohabitation, I just kind of jumped way over here with that. But cohabitation, I just challenge you to think it over before you move in with somebody. Why are you moving in with them? What is the reason and how are you doing it? Are you being intentional? Are you planning for your future? Is there something in place? Are you being intentional? So please consider the cohabitation effect and the misconception of living together. Thanks if you stuck around. I'll see you soon.